questions, then we can shift to the next talk, which is me.
Dr. Ashish Sharma sir will be talking about the regulatory aspects of all the biosimilar development across the globe.
Hello. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. And I'm going to talk about an important part, which is regulatory and drug trial design of biosimilar, which is very, very different. And this is something, which causes sometimes a negative perception about these drugs. But we need to really see the nuances that why there is a truncated clinical trial design of biosimilars and why the regulatory defines it in a different way. So that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to touch upon India and the overseas both so that we are on the same page. And before I proceed further, these are my disclosures. I consult for various biosimilar companies across the globe. And this is our contribution. We have been trying to understand various biosimilars and their various aspects in terms of efficacy, safety, phase 3 trial design, post-marketing data, and how they are governed in different countries. So these are some of our publications. And as Nilesh highlighted, this is our wonderful group, who have been guiding us since a long time on this. So regulatory process, how do you really define an innovator? We can talk about the brand, Lucentis, because that is the only biosimilar at this point that we have. Multiple biosimilar ranibizumab molecules that we have. For example, Resumab. For example, Reniice, for example, Renizurel, different country, different companies, they manufacture it, and they are branded also by different companies. So I'm talking about the manufacturers here. So now if you really look at the design, what happens if an innovator molecule, Lucentis took approximately 12 months to 24 months of a trial, a big trial, which had approximately 500 patients or so. So big trial lasted for 12 months, 24 months. We are used to seeing those kind of trials. But suddenly a biosimilar comes, somebody comes and tells you the data of phase 3 trial, and you see that data. On that data, you would see that the primary outcome is assessed at 4 weeks, 8 weeks, or 12 weeks. As a retina specialist, you get worry about it. That these drugs, molecules are not very well tested. That's the safety aspect that you always worry, and it's a logical worry because means you have been used to seeing that kind of data. But let me tell you why that happens. What happens, ultimately across the Europe, US, whenever biosimilars start, Europe is the most mature nation if you talk about biosimilars. If we again regulate them the same way the innovator is being regulated, the word biosimilar would not mean. So why this 4 weeks, 8 weeks, endpoints? I'll tell you, whenever you must have in your clinical practice experience, you give an injection, you give another injection second month, you give another injection third month. That is the majority of time you see the maximum effect of a drug. But after 3 months or 4 months, that's what we call as a loading dose, because you see that impact in 3 months. After that, the impact fades away. So what biosimilar trials they do is, these are all equivalence trial. They need to show that this drug works as good as in terms of efficacy and safety, especially efficacy, like an innovator drug. So equivalence can be tested only at those time points. You cannot test it at 6 months or 12 months because then the behavior would differ. So the maximum impact on the visual acuity, on the central macular thickness comes at 4 weeks and 8 weeks. That is the reason primary endpoints are at 4 to 8 weeks. But if you really look at the international trials of biosimilars, they also have primary endpoints in 8 weeks, 12 weeks. But their trial lasts for 12 months to test the safety. Safety is important. For that, you cannot truncate it, really narrow down. Because for safety, you need to keep checking how the entire antibody or anything builds up over the time. So the way it happens, the pharma industry is so sophisticated now. If you already have a molecule you just map the primary structure, tertiary structure, and secondary structure. Once they are mapped, what you need to just ultimately do with the clinical trial, with a small clinical trial, just to see whether there's something really falling off which you could not detect on the basic parameters. So that's the reason that you have more of analytical data and very less of clinical trial. That's why the cost comes down. And cost coming down is an important aspect. And these trials, I would say, they are country specific, because this was the paper recently we published. We really gave an overview that how phase 3 clinical trial designs are in this country. Means I sincerely wish that DCGI, which is a authority which gives approval for all these drugs, they should really see into the deeper aspect of these all trial design when they approve it. Because all these trial designs are different. Means I do not really like, the randomization of 3:1. That means you have 75 of patients in one arm and like 25 patients in another arm, because the chances of losing out and not detecting something is more. So the way international trials they do is 1-to-1 randomization. Means 50% patients in the treatment in the innovator arm, 50% in the biosimilar. Then you get a better answer. So I hope as a society, we should convey this to DCGI, and they should really give a guide that there should be symmetry in all the designs. So if you see here, except lupin, everybody has 3:1 or 2:1 kind of randomization here. This is US. You see the total study duration, 12 months, which I like, because that way safety is much better defined. You see all the Indian trials, 3 months, 6 months, curtailed down. So I think if we become a little mature, we would have a much better safety profile. Why there is a difference in this? I already explained this, that why there is a truncated design, because of the equivalence kind of design. Are Indian molecules inferior? No, they are not. Ultimately, real-world data is something which drives up. So if you really look now, we have plethora of real-world data with companies like Resumab. Resumab has the highest real-world data, and we are going to publish even the Renia's data also with 500 eyes, real-world data, which is an important key data for all these molecules. Both the companies, they have their global trials. If you see, Indian trials are truncated, but as EMA and FDA, they require their sample size of 600 patients with 12 months of treatment. So they have to go through that kind of trial data. So both the companies, Indian companies, they are filing for FDA and EMA as well. So there the number and size is a little large. This I have already explained to you, that should we have a longer trial? I wish. It doesn't matter, you just take 3 and 6 more months for our patient safety. So I think that, so what has happened, what biosimilars have done? This is the survey. I lead a group, international group called International Retina Biosimilar Study Group. We have done a survey of perception about these biosimilars of all the Vitreoretinal Society members. So what we found is, what do you think about clinical trials in India? People do not believe. As I said, they think that they are of very short duration. So only one trial and approval for all indications. Nilesh has touched upon this, because receptors are same. If innovator molecule like Lucentis have shown any kind of safety issues with AMD, RVO, DME, then that makes sense that you go for different trials. But Lucentis never showed that. That's why only one trial is fine. There is a future possibility. UK has, slashed off the need of phase 3 clinical trial for biosimilars. Not in really ophthalmology, for other areas. But whether that would happen in ophthalmology, we would see. But less likely, because eye is quite a sensitive organ there. So experience from Europe is quite healthy, and till now, since 2006, there's no biosimilar which is being withdrawn. So overall, education, and awareness about biosimilars, which is required, because these are the molecules which have structural similarity with a molecule which has already shown the track record, safety track record. So novel assets could be unpredictable, like brolucizumab, but these are predominantly safe. So if we believe them, if we understand them well, I'm sure many lives can become better with biosimilar, and that is happening. that is happening now because the trend has changed. Major proportion of all the practices in India are using biosimilar, and the innovator molecule has shrunk down to less than 25%. So